everyone. Welcome to Switchblade Sisters Social Club, the true crime podcast where two friends exploit their worst fears for your entertainment.
You're welcome.
I'm Dee, a writer and podcaster.
And I'm Isla from Criminally Good Books, a true crime and crime fiction bookshop in York.
Follow us on all the socials.
Except for X, obviously.
Or have a look at our website, switchbladesisterssocialclub.com.
Check them out for all our latest episodes, events, deals, and other weird stuff.
Listeners' discretion advised. Hi.
Hello.
This is episode 2 with my new co-host.
I'm so excited, Dee. I cannot wait.
I know.
Cannot wait.
And some big things are happening. I'm in my office again because some of you know that I had a Poonami where an unnamed company, I haven't signed an NDA or anything, it's Dino Rod, did some work in the street and caused sewage floods in my office, and everything had to be replaced. The flooring, the walls, it soaked up the walls, all the furniture, because most of it had like wooden legs or wood or whatever, so it got soaked up into the desks, the bottom of my sofa. I lost all the books on the bottom 2 shelves of my bookcases, fucking just everything. And then like months of fighting with their insurance company to get it like covered, and then obviously the hassle of like the actual building work. But I'm back in, there's still a bit of work, but I'm so excited. And this is my new mascot, Jacques.
It looks so cute. I love Jacques.
And obviously tribute to the OG Rhonda. We miss you and we love you.
We miss you, Rhonda. We love you so much. And I've got mine. I will promise I will bring it for next time. I'll put it.
What, pin it to the wall with your Christmas
decorations? Pin it to the wall with my Christmas decoration that's there.
Yeah.
And this isn't Christmas. These are just birds.
Just random all-season birds.
All-season birds.
Yeah.
Everyone needs some all-season birds.
And I got a really nice jumper from, oh God, I can't remember the name of the company. Let me just find it. Amazing company.
I'm always on the lookout for amazing companies.
Yeah, so it's in honor of the journalists that are working tirelessly in Gaza, and in particular the ones that have died. I want to say it's called We Are Heroes, but I just want to make sure I get it right. They have a bunch of amazing Palestinian inspired jumpers, hoodies, accessories, and so forth. And Hoodies for Heroes.
Oh, that sounds fun.
No, that's a different brand.
Okay.
Sorry.
Not that one.
Yeah, that is a different brand. Because
do they donate a percentage of the profits? Because I always want to have a look and see exactly where the money goes.
Yes, they do. I'm going to find them on Instagram. Sorry.
So I just not signed up, but I got lots of jewelry from Nominal, and it's just so nice. I really, really love it. I've got my watermelon earrings, and I've got a necklace and other little bits and bobs, and they're all waterproof, and they're just so nice.
We Are Heroes. I'm going to edit this so that it seems really, really quick. Fuck. How am I not finding this?
Shall I look it up as well? Chris jumpers.
Wear the Peace. Oh my God, my dyslexia read that as We Are. Wear the Peace.
Wear the Peace. Cool.
I'll put a link in the show notes because honestly, there's such cool stuff. Like I said, this is in honor of the journalists. You know, I do a lot of journalism is my day job, and this particularly touches me because so far since the 7th of October, 179 journalists and media workers have been killed in the conflict. And bear in mind, international journalists are not really allowed into Gaza at the moment. So the ones in Gaza are fighting so hard to make it people aware of what's going on there. They're trying to have a media blackout, and they're fighting against that. And the fact that they're being murdered, we had big uproar when Shireen Abu Akleh got killed, rightly so. I think that might have been partly because she was not entirely, but female, Christian, but also held an American passport. So she was American as well. But since then, 179 journalists. This should be a protected, you know, all people should be protected. But they're doing the work that we need. In addition to that, 408 aid workers. including 280 working for the UN, for UNRWA. So that is UN organization staff members being killed,
I
which
know,
is
it's
just
unreal.
horrendous, as well as a bunch of other amazing organizations working in the field. And obviously, that's not to mention the over 62,000 civilians, Palestinians that have died, and civilians in Israel as well. 1,139 people in Israel since October 7th. It's unacceptable. And I know it's something that we both feel passionate about. I'm obviously
Absolutely.
Palestinian. You've worked on the issue in your past jobs, and you have a heart and you are human. So,
and I have a bookshop with a big war crime section. So
yeah.
check it
So
out.
wherever you stand politically, it's not even about that anymore, because what is happening in Gaza on the ground now is there's clearly breaches of international human rights happening. There's war crimes being happening. This is being confirmed by the International Court of Justice, the ICC, the International Criminal Court. This isn't my personal opinion as a Palestinian. This is fact now. And what's scary, because we're both British citizens, is that Britain is now still selling arms. They've agreed to cut back on some, but they're still selling a bunch of arms that Israel actually can't get from anywhere else, like these parts
We'll
for
cut back
fighter
on
jets.
some of them.
Yeah, we'll cut back on some of them and all of them. And the thing is that we as a Britain have agreed that we will not be complicit in war crimes. So this is going against, home domestic policy as well. And even if you don't give a shit about Israel Palestine, you should care about what your own country is doing. And
absolutely.
Until this is resolved and you can guarantee that the trade in these arms is not being used to commit war crimes, Britain should suspend all of them. All of them. Absolutely. And until they're doing that, they're basically guilty of war crimes themselves. And again, not an opinion. That is international law. That is the rule of law. And if you wonder what you would have done during Nazi Germany, during the Holocaust, during all those things, now's your time to prove yourself, Write to your MP. I'm involved heavily with an organization, a charity called Britain Palestine Project, where we do a lot of lobbying with parliamentarians, giving them the facts that they need to ask questions in Parliament, to put pressure on the government to make sure they do the right thing according to their own policies and the policies of the different conventions they've signed up to. So check that out, BritainPalestineProject.org. We constantly do email your MP campaigns. I know it feels so weak to send an email, but it does help.
You make it so easy, Dee. It's so easy because you've got the templates there, and all it takes is less than 2 minutes just to go on, use the template, tweak it, and send it to your MP. I use the stuff from your charity to contact my local MP, Rachel, and she's absolutely phenomenal. She's in York for the Palestinian Solidarity campaign. She stands up in Parliament, talks about it.
And this is the other thing that's really helpful for us as an organization, is that we then see who of the MPs have received letters, what they've done as a result, and so forth. So it's really helpful. So when we talk to those MPs, we can say, well, we know at least through our organization alone that you've got 40 emails from constituents about this issue and about that issue. So it really helps us. And then when we also plan events and fundraising and awareness raising activities, we can see where our supporters are based and where we can focus our efforts. But there is a growing movement. More people are wanting to find out about this issue. More people are wanting to understand where we as a British communities are, where Britain has a historic responsibility in the region. It used to be the British Mandate, which is basically a really sort of diluted term for colony. And then Britain left in the way it left a lot of colonies in turmoil. And that has been what is basically partly responsible for a lot of this this drama. Again, I feel like I'm using euphemisms because it's so awful that I don't even think the English language has words to describe.
That's a word, I know. Genocide.
So genocide, apartheid, and so forth. So we would love for you to go and have a look. I also host another podcast with them. It's we do webinars twice a month on different topics. We have a backlog of many years. We started during COVID. And no matter what your interest is, we've had artists, we've had historians, politicians, lawyers, filmmakers, all kinds of, we had the director of the Farmers Union talking about agriculture and the supply of food during occupation and so forth. We have one today, which will be on the website by the time this podcast comes out, with an Israeli professor, Menachem Klein. So interesting. He's going to be talking about the Israeli society and how they have become radicalized into being okay with what's happening in their name. So do check it out. We have all of the recordings of the past webinars on podcasts. They're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, so forth. They're on their website. They're on YouTube. Do check it out. It's really important to be informed of what's going on in the world and also in your name. It's happening in your name. As long as Britain is trading arms with Israel, as long as they're giving support, it's happening in your name. And that's what's really scary, I think.
Sorry, carry on, sorry.
No, I was just saying that I'm also going to be writing an article this week for the Washington Report on Middle East Affairs, amazing publication. It's online.
They love you.
I love them.
I know, I was going to say, we love them.
But I'm going to be writing an article which is going to be super personal, and I'm really like emotional about it because it's going to be about what it's like living in a country. I'm a British citizen. This has been my home since I was 7. Sorry, I'm getting a bit emotional. What it's like living in a country that you've made your home, that you love. I love living here. I'm so lucky. I didn't grow up in a refugee camp, even though my dad was a refugee. I grew up in like Royal Borough of Richmond, Chiswick, I've had a charmed life with opportunities and all sorts. But what it's like, especially the last 20 months since the 7th of October, living in a country that has placed no value on your people. Because I'm also Palestinian. And that's the beauty of being British, is that you can be British as well as from your country of origin. And that's always been celebrated. But what it's like living in a country where time and time again, the way the government talks, less so the people these days, which is nice, but the government talks about you like you're literally worth less. And it's hard.
And you've been here paying taxes, supporting the UK, and then you see what's happening in Palestine, and
my tax money going to shit that
and then the rhetoric that's being used. And I think that what's really sad is the fact that you and I are educated, particularly you, in terms of what's happening in Palestine and Israel, because we've worked out there. I mean, I've been to Gaza, for goodness sake, and like we're really passionate about it. But then some people have just no clue, like absolutely no clue whatsoever. They don't even know about the Freedom Flotilla. They don't even know about the genocide. They have no clue whatsoever.
And that's
I just
part of
cannot
it.
Imagine not knowing what's going on in the world.
But we know that's why it's an interesting study, isn't it, about how the government and the media keep people informed on some things, make a big deal about some things, and other stuff you really have to dig to try to find out facts and so forth. And that is strategic. That's not by accident. So always be aware of what the government and the media point you to, and what are they trying to distract you from when they do that. Absolutely. And again, if you think that this is all just like my personal opinion because I'm emotional about this personal situation, the Israeli government, the Knesset, Benjamin Netanyahu, and all of his cabinet, they're regularly standing up and saying they're openly talking about their plans for Gaza, and that is to eliminate as much of the population as possible, remove them or otherwise, and gain control of that. That is the definition of ethnic cleansing. And the way they're doing it is genocide. So,
and if any of the Knesset members disagree, like that one gentleman that stood up that was forcibly removed, that's what happens to you. I actually don't know what happened to him after that happened, but I don't imagine it was a pleasant experience.
No. And what happens to our legitimate politicians? They say that they can't make peace with us because they don't like Hamas and that Fatah don't have control. But all of the other decent candidates and potential politicians of the future in administrative detention, which is a very, very nice way of saying fucking hostage. We talk about like Israeli hostages. Of course, they should be released. Of course. But we have Palestinian hostages that have been in jail, not charged for 20 years plus. They are called prisoners.
Children.
Yes, children.
Absolutely. Children as well.
The children in the West Bank, they go to military jail. They don't
I
go to
mean,
civilian.
it's horrific. It's
And we have
horrific.
a webinar with Save the Children on that topic exactly, because if you ever need to
I would
confirm
love to
whether
see
it's
that actually.
yeah, if you ever need to confirm whether it's apartheid, how how the military detention system is deployed
Mm.
is basically, if you're Palestinian and you get in trouble in the West Bank, whether you genuinely did something bad or not, you go through the military courts and military detention. If you're Israeli and you live in the West Bank, even though that you live there illegally by international law, by British law, and so forth, the Israeli settlements in the West Bank are illegal. They're deemed illegal. You go through the civilian courts and you go through to a regular jail. So I'm sorry, but two separate legal systems for two different types of ethnicity, that is, again, the definition of apartheid. So our dear friend, Desmond Tutu.
Oh, Toots. We love him.
We love
him.
We
loved him.
Well, we still love him. May he rest in peace. And we have a gorgeous picture of us with him. And I will.
He's so lovely.
Yeah. But he
so
said
funny.
it was apartheid. And he actually said it was worse than apartheid in some ways. So anyways, on to from international crimes to a more localized crime.
Ooh, I'm so excited, Dee.
Because I don't want to spend this whole episode crying.
That's fine. We'll just edit out the tears.
Nah, leave them in. Yeah, so this is a story that I thought would be really interesting to cover with you, because you have a shop, right? And we're all consumers, because it's a little bit, and off the back of what we were talking about, you know, Israel-Palestine, it's a little bit the story of responsible consumerism.
Oh, interesting.
Which is a very boring way of describing this horrific, gruesome case. So trigger warning, there's a whole bunch of dead people shit. Yeah. And it goes back to, I'm sure you remember because you listened to every single episode of the podcast previous, that just before New Year's Eve, I went to a serial killer exhibition with our dear friend, Lisa Mafia, who we both know.
Absolutely, Lisa Mafia. Love Lisa.
Lisa Mafia. And we wanted to go. We didn't know much about the serial killer exhibition, and I'm really annoyed with myself because I feel like if I knew what I know now, I wouldn't have even gone.
Oh,
because I already felt a bit uncomfortable. I talked about it after I went to the exhibition. You know, because we talk about this a lot, about the trade of like memorabilia, crime memorabilia, and like, you know, it covers other stuff like Nazi memorabilia, all this kind of stuff. Yes, there's a place in keeping hold of it and you know, and showing it so that people learn from the history, of course, you know, the mistakes and whatever. So yes, in exhibitions, museums, of course it's valid. It crosses the line when it's sort of like private trade and everything that creeps me out a lot.
Making money out of it, out of other people's misery.
And as I was walking through this exhibition, I kind of got the sense that it was a little bit more like sensationalizing the crimes rather than educating about it. And then that was 100% confirmed at the end in the gift shop, because I love a souvenir. Who doesn't love a gift from the gift shop? It's one of my favorite parts about going to a museum or whatever, right?
Gift shop first before the exhibitions.
Yeah, well, they kind of sent you on a trail where you couldn't do that. Otherwise, I don't know if I would have gone to the rest of the exhibition, because they had mugs, they had postcards, they had coasters, all kinds of stuff, t-shirts, whatever. But all of it was with like the serial killers on it. I couldn't even find one just with the name of the exhibition on it, which I would have been okay-ish with. Yeah. But I don't want a fucking mug with Charles Manson or John Wayne Gacy on it.
No, and it's when they've got puns and things on them as well.
Yeah,
and like
they didn't go to the far of having puns, but like that made me feel really uncomfortable, because I was like, you know, sorry, that's not, I mean, I wouldn't have wanted one with a victim on it either or whatever. I don't know what the appropriate type of merch would have been, but like I said, stuff with the name of an exhibition, fine, but like actual serial killers, like, again, it just felt like it was glorifying it a little bit. So I felt really uncomfortable at the exhibition, which I did talk about on the show at the time. I also mentioned that I noticed going around the exhibition that a lot of the exhibits had been donated by one guy, and I'd never heard this guy's name before.
Oh no.
Nicolas Claux.
Nicolas Claux.
Nicolas, the French way with S at the end, it's a male. But then you go further and there's a fucking board about him because he is known as the Vampire of Paris. So I was like, what the fuck is going on here? This guy has been convicted of murder in Paris and he's donated. He's somehow since then, I guess, collected all of this like memorabilia and donated them to this exhibition. So I was like, what is going on? So then, yeah, let me show you.
Who's making money out of this? This is what I want to know.
Right. So let me share.
I want to see what he looks like and why he's called the vampire.
Well, this is what I will be talking about.
I'm excited.
So yeah, so like I said, I saw his name freaking everywhere. And then here, I'll zoom in so you can see.
Oh my God.
That's him at the time of his sort of arrest, and that's him more recently. But this is like, yeah, bored about him, about the murder he committed, which I will talk about because you probably gathered he is my subject for today's.
Oh my gosh, I haven't heard of him, so this is like super interesting.
And then I was like, but how is he related to this exhibition? And like there were pictures, for example, let me show you, of letters that he'd exchanged with Richard Ramirez.
Oh God, no.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So again, this is where it starts getting really creepy. But
he's like Dee, he is the one for me that just makes my skin just crawl. Like
so while he's in
everyone.
Prison, he's fucking exchanged letters with Richard Ramirez.
And these letters are what? Asking for advice?
Don't know, but this is little mini exhibition about Richard Ramirez. There was lots of stuff, but some of these are letters between him, Richard Ramirez, and this guy, Nicolas Claux. Sorry, I haven't taken it close enough so that you can, but here it says Claux talks about it in his book, Legions of the Night. So Richard Ramirez sent this signed photo in the late 1990s to Nicolas, who, when he was also held in prison for murder. The two killers wrote letters to each other over a period of 10 years. So I was like, what is going on with this? You know, it's like bizarre. I
can understand like prisoners writing letters to people. I just would like to know exactly what they were chatting about.
I know, you would have thought it'd be super monitored and stuff. There was also, just to lighten the mood a little bit, there was a cute dog at the exhibition going around at the same time as me.
That's a good palate cleanser.
Yeah, sorry, I just
wanted to. And the dog kind of looks like it's saying, why the fuck am I here?
Where the fuck am I? What's going on?
Please can we leave now? Yeah, it doesn't smell good in here.
Yeah. So then when I got home, I Googled some more, and he was all over the place, this Nicolas Claux. I mean, he was podcast interviews with him, YouTube videos and everything. So today I'm going to be talking about the twisted legacy of Nicolas Claux, better known as the Vampire of Paris, once convicted of murder and accused of drinking human blood. Claux has since carved out a dark niche in the true crime world, from collecting serial killer memorabilia to giving chilling interviews on podcasts and YouTube. He's transformed from a real-life monster to a macabre icon. How did a convicted killer become a sought-out figure in the true crime community? Let's sink our teeth into this story.
I see what you did there.
So sources, Murderpedia, Le Parisien newspaper online. This is where my French speaking came into the fore, which I'm sure is exactly why my parents wanted to make sure I kept that language up. And of course, the University of Wikipedia for some of the pictures, but also I listened to some of the podcast episodes and watched some of the YouTube videos. So you guys don't have to, because I do not recommend it. It will not leave me. I know this guy served his time, but I'm nauseated by him, okay? So Nicolas Claux, aka also known as Nico, but I'm going to call him Claux because I don't want to humanize him anymore. Also known as the Vampire of Paris. He was arrested on the 15th of November, 1994. So like fairly recently, right? This is, you know, he's obviously still alive. He's probably a little bit older than us. I don't know. He was arrested
I would hope so, Dee.
Yeah, he was born in 1972, so yeah, he's like 10-ish years older than me, and about the same, much older than you. So he was arrested on the 15th of November 1994 outside the Moulin Rouge on suspicion of murder. He was 22, which is so young. So what happened, and could he be responsible for more murders in a there was a bunch that were occurring at the time. Most of the victims were homosexual men, which, in the 90s, people were less good
Forgiving.
with,
Not forgiving, but.
So Gilbert Thiel, I want to say, he's the murder squad's investigator. He thought that a series of murders, 7 in that October alone, were committed by one person. So 7
in 1 month.
When they arrested Claux, he was convinced that they had their man for most of these murders. But what came next was a tale of murder, necrophilia, Satanism, grave robbing, and cannibalism. So, Claux, he was born on the 22nd of March, 1972 in Cameroon. His father was French and worked for a bank, so they moved around a lot, which can be unsettling. I had that as well. I lived here since I was 7. Before that, we moved around quite a bit. They lived in Cameroon, they lived in London, then back to Paris between the ages of 7 and 12. Claux said, my childhood was basically normal, except that I was very withdrawn and only had a few friends. I was a lonely child, lacking brothers and sisters to play with. So I spent most of my time alone in my room. That made me really grateful for having my sister, because me and my sister are really close. And when you move around so much, it is nice having that like partner in crime, Not literal crime like this guy, though.
No, but you were like goth crime. You were like goth babies.
Yeah, little goth babies. He said his parents weren't very affectionate. They didn't hug him or tell him that they loved him. He became obsessed with death, the occult, vampires, werewolves, the movie The Exorcist, which was a huge deal when it came out. I don't think any of these things are that unusual, like,
No.
Again, little goth baby, you do, especially as a teenager, you're exploring different personalities and different things. And that's exactly the time you should be doing it. But when Claux was 10, his granddad died. And Claux felt responsible because they were arguing at the time. Bear in mind, he's 10 at the time. So that's fucking a lot, right?
Oh, dear. Did he have a heart attack?
He had a cerebral embolism. But 10-year-old Claux felt like the family blamed him. And it kind of increased his obsession with death, which it's not really a surprise. And, it's a shame that they weren't more aware of things like counseling and so forth at the time, because it sounds like he needed some assistance there. And this definitely was a turning point, His obsession expanded into burial rites, wakes, morgues, and so forth. Then at the age of 12, his family moved from Paris to Lisbon for 4 years. And every move that happened after this obsession with death grew made it harder for him to find more friends with shared interests. He started to resent people of his own age. And I can get that. It's hard when you have a very different background to find other people to connect with, But obviously, as his interests got more niche,
Niche.
Yeah, I don't know. At 16, they moved back to Paris, and he spent all his free time in cemeteries, which, to be fair, in Paris, they're stunning.
They are amazing. Like the family plots. Whew.
I know. And the last time I went to Paris in November last year, I also went to cemeteries. I wouldn't say I would ever spend all my free time there, but I was near Montparnasse and went to a cemetery with Simone de Beauvoir.
Oh, you're going to show me a picture?
Yeah, I'm going to show you a few. I can't remember. Baudelaire, that was Baudelaire, who I love, French writer. I mean, they are stunning, people, they are tourist sites. People go to Père Lachaise, where Jim Morrison is, and so forth, so Man Ray, this is Man Ray, who's linked to the Black Dahlia case, if you're interested. Yeah, so there's, they're stunning.
Yeah, they are really stunning.
A bit weird to spend all of your time there, though.
I mean, I think if you're interested in architecture and like, is it architecture, like, design
Yeah.
and like, and history, they're
And
just
if you
like
don't have
lovely places.
friends, yeah.
They're
Um,
lovely places, quiet places and peaceful and.
they do have a slightly different vibe in Paris as well, especially the ones in the center of Paris, where they're kind of almost more like parks. Like you have literally people that go and have their lunch in their lunch break on a bench in the
Mm.
cemetery. So
Yeah.
um, he says, my favorite things were mausoleums. Mine too, there. But then he decided he wanted to see inside them. I'm still kind of on board because I peek in the little stained glass windows,
Yeah, who
obviously,
who doesn't? You're like
right?
hoping that you're going to catch something, aren't you? You're going to
Yeah.
see something that you shouldn't.
Well, just like what? Because a lot of them have like little mini chapels inside and
Yeah,
stuff.
absolutely. Mm.
So many of them are decorated nicer than most people's houses. So, but this is the part where he loses me.
Okay.
He designs his own lock picking tools and sometimes use a crowbar. And
No.
once inside, he says he felt like an emperor reigning in hell. Like, calm down. But soon this wasn't enough for him because, a lot of people, their behavior escalates, right? He decided he wanted to not just dig up a corpse, but he wanted to mutilate it. So he went to the Passy Cemetery near Trocaderos. This is quite central Paris,
Mm.
Trocaderos, like kind of, I believe it's opposite the river to the Eiffel Tower.
Hmm.
At noon, while the grave diggers were at lunch, because by now he knows everyone's fucking
Oh my
routines.
God, is he literally watching everyone's schedules to like work it all
Well,
out?
he hangs out at these cemeteries, so he's obviously known
With
that
his
at
little
this.
notepad.
So
Fucking
he went to
hell.
the burial site of Russian immigrants from the 1917 revolution. He'd already forced the iron door open a few days before, and so he noticed that it hadn't been like checked or fixed or whatever. So he went in, that easy. He removed one of the coffins from where it was stored, and sometimes they're underneath the floor, sometimes they're on the walls, in the walls.
Wow, yeah.
They can be different. He unscrewed the coffin. He said the coffin looked new-ish, and when he opened it up, the smell of putrefaction and embalming liquids hit him. Okay.
Was he turned on? Is this what you're going to tell me?
Trigger warning, the next bit is corpse mutilation, and it's in his own words. Because obviously he got arrested and done for the crime, so I have a lot of quotes from him.
Okay.
So he says, then I saw the body inside. It was half rotten. It was a half rotten old woman, shrouded in a white sheet, covered with brown stains. Her face seemed to be smeared with oil, but it was simply the death fluids oozing from her skin. The stench was so intense that I nearly fainted. I tried to lift one side of the sheet, but it was glued to her petrified skin. The teeth were protruding from the mouth, but her eyes were gone. I stared into the empty sockets, and all of a sudden something broke in my mind. I felt like I was falling into a whirlwind. That's when I picked up the screwdriver. The corpse inside the coffin started to move slightly, like if it had guessed what would happen next. So I began to stab the belly, the rib area, and the shoulders. I stabbed her at least 50 times. I really can't remember. All I can remember is that when I woke up, my forearms were covered with corpse slime. Sorry, that was awful. I had to get through it really quick and like disassociate from what I was reading. This was the first of many break-ins into graves and mausoleums. Then at 20, he joined the army.
Oh God.
Which makes you wonder, as I often do, what kind of testing, psychological testing they do when people join the army, the police force, or whatever. Because it's not enough. Because this guy, after having done all this shit, has joined the army and gets trained as a gunsmith.
Can we just say that we know a lot of police officers and there's people in the army that are just great and like we love like people like Colin Sutton and all those people. But they're it's really worrying when you look back at cases and where you think, okay, surely they wouldn't have let this person in if they had the right protocols in place.
Yeah.
Scary. What's his
Because
position? What did he
he
join?
trains as a gunsmith. So
like
I assume
making
most people in the army get some
guns.
sort of
Is that like
gun
making guns?
training.
Oh my
I
God,
think just
okay.
responsible for the guns, cleaning the guns,
Yeah,
doing all the
okay.
gun stuff, right?
Okay.
But he found the regime and the lifestyle boring, so he left the army after a year, which again should have raised some red flags, I think. But he decided he wanted to become a mortician, but the embalming school declined his application. So even the embalming schools have better protocols
I was about to say, well done
and
that
better
embalming skill.
screening. Yeah.
Do
So
we
they
know their
obviously,
name? Can we give
no,
them a shout out?
no, we don't know their name, but they deserve a shout out because they obviously had some sense and they obviously have a better screening process than the fucking French army. But this is chilling. So after he's left the army after a year and been declined by an embalming school, he starts working at a hospital for children.
Oh my God,
He
Dee.
was a morgue attendant there, and he was excited to be working with fresh corpses, which is especially terrifying when you think that those fresh corpses were children.
Mm-mm.
In 1993, he was moved to a different hospital soon after. He was still working in the morgue, and he was actually helping with autopsies and stuff. So, trigger warning, because this is another quote and it involves cannibalism. I don't even know how much I'm going to leave in of his direct quotes, but I'll tell you now. So this is from him, right? Most of the autopsies were done by us, the morgue attendants. We would do the Y-shaped incisions, cut the ribs at the joints, and open the skull with the electric saw. The pathologist only dissected the organs and put them in a box. So they would do the basic stuff, and then the actual doctor would come in and do the other stuff, which makes sense. But
That's it? You have no medical training?
I guess they are trained for that as a morgue assistant, right? Like how
Well,
you have nurses that do some procedures and then the doctors come
yeah,
in
but
and
a
do the more
nurse is
specialized stuff.
fully qualified. A nurse
Yeah,
is fully qualified.
I don't know, but it's
I
just
mean, he's
terrible.
obviously had like on the job training. It's not just like day one, you go in and you're given like a saw to take a skull off. But I can
I would
imagine how
hope.
much he would
Yeah.
love this job, given
And
everything
could
it
anyone
says.
notice, like, I mean, obviously you need to have a passion for your job, but surely you'd be able to tell when that passion is misplaced on the wrong part of the job, right?
Hmm.
I would be left alone with the body after the autopsies to do the stitches, which were my speciality. This is when I began eating strips of muscles from the bodies. I always checked out their medical files first. I talked with the butcher once who told me the meat is better 3 or 4 days after death. This is something I'd always dreamed of doing, and it was the opportunity to do it on a regular basis. Sometimes I brought select meats home with me to be cooked, but my preference was to eat them raw. It tasted like tartar steak or carpaccio. The big muscles of the thighs and back were good, but there was no good meat in the breasts, only fat. People often asked what went through my mind the first time I indulged my cannibalistic fantasy. Well, to be honest, I said to myself, wow, now I'm a cannibal. Cool. Ugh. He also started stealing blood bags from work, bringing them home, putting them in his fridge, then mixing them with protein powder or human ashes to drink it. Ugh, sorry.
Can I
Ugh.
just say that if you were doing this with Randa, she would be gagged by now.
I'm gagging as I'm reading this.
It's like
Yeah,
horrible.
it's horrible. So we come to the 4th of October, 1994. Claux
Mm.
wanted to turn another fantasy into reality. He wanted to take someone's life. So he's escalating really fast, you know? He started looking out for a potential victim, not caring who it was. So he gets on Minitel.
What's
Um,
Minitel? Sorry.
yeah, so my aunt had a flat in Paris and she had a Minitel, and it was like bizarrely ahead of its time, because it was almost like a precursor to the internet. It was like a mixture of teletext and the internet and Grindr and Tinder.
What
So
the
you
hell?
you got this box. Almost every French household had this box, a Minitel box in their house,
Uh-huh.
and you could use it to get news and weather, but you could also get on like chat groups. And
Okay.
apparently, it was really used a lot by the gay community at the time
Mm.
to reach out, make connections, sometimes sexual, sometimes friendship. I don't know. So Claude starts talking to a guy called Thierry Bissonnier, 34-year-old who was a restaurateur and part-time classical musician. They started talking about bondage and so forth. Claude didn't really give a shit about any of this. He wasn't gay or anything. He just wanted to lure a potential victim. And this was like a very, it's a vulnerable community at a time where they weren't being protected very much. I'm sure he was aware that there was a lot of murders in the area. Whether he was responsible or not, we can discuss later, but they wouldn't have been given the same attention as other murders and so forth. So it was easy targets, right?
Mm.
He wanted to lure Thierry into a false sense of security. Soon, Terry gave Claude his address and they agreed to meet at his place at noonish. Remember, Claux is a trained gunman, so he brought a 22 caliber handgun hidden under his jacket. He knocked on the door of the flat. He pulled the gun before Thierry even finished closing the door behind him. He pulled the trigger almost instantly. Thierry fell face down and started to bleed. Claux then decides to have a look around the flat. Then he noticed that Thierry was still alive, so he shot him again at the back of the head. He reloaded and then shot him a few more times, but Thierry was still alive. Claux left him like that and went to eat some cookies in the kitchen, watching Thierry struggle to breathe on the floor as he ate them. Like, this is one of the most fucked up individuals I've read about. Right? Like, it's not just that it's a murder, but the way that he got to the point of murder is just like horrifying. And then this is just awful.
Absolutely. I mean, it's one thing to want to like kill someone, Dee, and like I don't understand it, but obviously that's what his fetish and fantasy was. But then at what point do you then almost like do you waking up, you see someone like you're killing them, they're lying there, you're now eating cookies and watching them.
It's
Like
like he's murdering for no reason other than enjoyment, right? It's not even a crime of passion. It's not financial. It's none of those things. It's not self-defense. It's purely because he wants to and he gets off on it, which is already just next level fucked up. But yeah, to watch someone die as he's eating cookies, it's just, oh. Then he decided he should probably leave soon because he'd obviously made a lot of noise with the gunshots and blah, blah, blah. So he shot him one last time in the back, smashed a huge pot plant on his head, stole Thierry's checkbook, credit card, and wallet, driving license, an alarm clock, and answering machine, wiped down fingerprints, and left. Thierry was not found for 3 days. His parents were starting to get worried about him not being in touch, so eventually he was found.
oh no, by his parents
I
or
don't think by his parents. I actually don't know who found him, but it took a while. And all that time, obviously, evidence is degrading and the chance of finding the person is getting weaker and so forth. But we know they caught the guy, so that's good.
Good.
Investigator Gilbert Thiel, remember him, had seen this shit before because it was common for gay men to be murdered in Paris, which is horrendous. Like I said, there had been 7 in that month alone. Homosexual murders accounted for 1/3 of all murders in Paris at the time. Sadly, the more liberal view on sexuality does present some risks, and the kind of underground nature of having to meet up with people again adds more risks. That's not me victim blaming at all. It's just, unfortunately, some people have a lifestyle and sometimes society makes a certain lifestyle more risky than others. And at 90s Paris was not very fucking safe for gay men. I mean, it was quite common in the gay community to use Minitel to meet strangers. And it wasn't, I mean, we still use the internet to meet strangers, which seems highly risky, and it is at times. But on the Minitel thing, there was like very, very little way of tracking.
Oh, I was going to ask how you could track someone,
so,
how the police did afterwards.
So what led the police to Claux? Because they arrested him fairly soon after. Well, the idiot forged a check from the checkbook to buy a VCR, which is so 90s. He had to present ID, so he showed Thierry's driving license when he which he had tried to replace the photo with his own. But the shop assistant instantly was like, this is a shit forgery. He could tell that it had been
Was it basically a crayon drawing of his face?
Yeah, basically just drawn over, a mustache and then drawn a mustache on his. So this shop assistant, well done, noticed that there had been some kind of forgery. And also when they compared the signature, I don't know if they're male or female or what. So they called the police, but Claux had run off before the police arrived. Then the 15th of November, 1994, more than a month after the murder, he was arrested outside Moulin Rouge after he got into an altercation with a woman, his own words. The police recognized him from the photo on the forged driving license because he had, I don't know if the shop assistant had kept hold of it or whether they'd taken a copy of it before Claux ran away. So they recognized him from that forged photo.
Wow, that is impressive.
Yeah, they didn't know. Claux didn't know that at the time of his arrest, the police were already searching his property at 9 Rue Cousteau, which you know how I love showing properties.
So they were already at his property because had they had a tip off or something?
So when they arrested him for getting in this fight with this woman,
They straight away did that, did
they realized who he was
they? Got you.
and put in motion. So while they were holding him, they were searching his place. So
How cool is that?
yeah, so this is where it is. It's
Oh,
kind
it's
of,
above the yin yang massage
yeah.
parlor.
And it's in the sort of area of Moulin Rouge. It's Pigalle is it's very touristy because you have Moulin Rouge, you have Sacré-Cœur, you know, the church on the top of the hill that looks like
Absolutely.
a cupcake, but it's not, it's a bit of a shady area, and especially in the 90s it was, you know, not pleasant and stuff. So they found the 22 caliber gun like the one used in the murder, but they also found, in his words, bone fragments and human teeth were scattered around like loose change. Vertebrae and leg bones hung from the ceiling like morbid mobiles, and hundreds of video cassettes, mostly slasher and hardcore S&M flicks, filled my shelves. They also found human ashes, bondage mags, handcuffs, surgical instruments, duct tape, and of course, bags of blood in the fridge. Those vary in terms of severity in my mind. Bondage magazines, fine. That doesn't mean you're going and murdering people. Bags of blood in the fridge, different category. Human ashes.
The bones hanging from the ceiling, like were they wind chimes? Like what was they, just decoration?
I don't know, but they must have walked in and been like, what the actual fuck, right? The ballistic test proved that the gun that they found with him was used in the murder, and then Claux confessed, which is why we have so much from his direct words, because he confessed quite quickly.
I mean, how do the police process a scene like that? I would be so fascinated to know. So that door opens, you go in. They've obviously found the gun, and that's processed in a particular way. But you've got ashes of people. How do you process that? You've got bones. You've got, like, that is just insane. Like, how long would that take?
I mean, that is like once in a lifetime type case, I imagine, where they walk into a scene that is just that horrific.
Well, like, I mean, Jeffrey Dahmer, like, you know, they found so much, like,
yeah.
I mean, it sounds to me like it's that kind of like things everywhere.
Yeah, and you know, a lot of murderers or whatever will try to hide their nefarious activity and try to keep their house like free of any kind of evidence. Not this guy. And also he was because he confessed fairly quickly. He was very vocal and told them everything, basically. So they knew where he found all these things. It was from the cemeteries, from the morgue and everything, where he had access to all this stuff. He confessed to stealing the blood bags and drinking them. At first, he claimed the motive for the murder was robbery. Because the victim was gay, police thought the motive might have been part sexual. He was sent to Fleury-Mérogis jail in the south of France.
It sounds lovely, by the way, when you say it like that, in the south of France.
It sounds lovely. Here's a picture of it.
Please tell me it looks awful, and it's just...
It does look awful. It does look awful. Don't you worry. Hang on. Can you see?
Not yet.
It looks like a combination between like the Pentagon and a prison. Pentagon kind of looks like a prison.
God, that is insane. That looks... Oh my God, yeah, Pentagon and prison.
Yeah, it's a bizarre looking building, but yeah, he went there. For the next 2 years, a team of psychiatrists and psychologists examined him. They diagnosed him with borderline psychotic personality disorder, necrophilia, and sexual sadism, but not criminally insane, meaning he knew what was right and what was wrong. He was mentally capable of understanding that what he was doing was wrong and illegal. Claux changed his original motive from robbery because he wanted to claim diminished responsibility. He then claimed he got in a fight with a gay man at Père Lachaise Cemetery over it being his territory, and so he sought revenge on all gays. So he's trying to make himself sound a bit cuckoo bananas so that he can get a diminished sentence. Yeah. It took 2 years for the preliminary investigation to wrap up, and his trial started on the 9th of May, 1997, nearly 3 years after the murder. Like, the poor family and community of friends of this guy, right?
But not just that, Dee. It's the fact that everything he's done before, that woman that he mutilated in the, in the cemetery, and all the other
I
people whose
know, finding out
bodies
about
that
all of
he,
those. Yeah,
yeah,
like it made me think of the David Fuller case,
yeah, the UK one.
where this
Mm,
man was finally caught for 2 murders in Kent in the 80s. And when they arrested him and they searched his house, they found on his computer just thousands and thousands of photos of dead
mm.
bodies and being violated by him.
And
And
we listened to those
to a
police
talk,
officers, didn't we?
they
Crime film.
were broken. It made me
Absolutely.
think about that, because that again
Mm,
must have been like, they're used to murders and this, that, and the other, but like the unexplained like horrendousness of some people. So
mm,
basically, I think he was an electrician. He meant and got a job in a hospital, so he had
mm,
full access, including to the morgue. And
absolutely.
so for decades, he had been violating these bodies, and these police officers had to look at all these photos, trace the victims, contact the family. They said it was a national operation of like 150 family liaison officers who had to break the news to these different family members at the same time, so they
Mm.
wouldn't hear about it in the press before they got told themselves. So yeah, imagine how devastating. You're already dealing with the loss of someone, they're in a morgue, but then to find out that,
Yeah,
um
horrific.
yeah, so it's just awful. Basically, he was pleading not guilty. The prosecution claimed it was premeditated murder. I mean, he went there with a gun. He
Gun,
arranged to
yeah,
meet this guy,
exactly.
brought a
Yeah,
gun.
absolutely.
But then they threw in that they thought this was just one of Claux's several murders in 1994. But there's no physical evidence linking him to any other murders, so they focused on Thierry. So they couldn't prove, that he was linked to any of the other murders, which, as far as I know, a lot of them are still unsolved. Claux claims he was diagnosed as psychotic, but there's no evidence, there's no court evidence of this. The
Okay.
jury deliberated for 3 hours and found him guilty of premeditated murder, armed robbery, and fraudulent use of bank check, falsification of a driver's license, and attempt to defraud a retailer. So you could tell they were like, throw fucking everything at this guy,
Yeah.
because I mean, attempt to defraud a retailer seems so minor in comparison to everything else, right? But they were like,
Mm.
nope, add it all in there.
Yeah.
Claux claimed he was done for grave robbing and theft of blood from the hospitals, but he wasn't. So this is the other fucking problem of giving these people platforms, is that they lie. They're not good people.
So he
So
actually said that he was done right for something that he wasn't. Why would he do that? Because he wants to be people to think he's like
yeah,
glorified
cool. I
and
don't know.
cool. Oh my gosh.
So how long do you think he gets for premeditated murder and all the other stuff?
I mean, I am going to say 12 years.
Spot on.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah, 12 years
Because,
for fucking
oh my
premeditated
God, really?
murder and a bunch of other stuff. I would have thought like armed robbery would get him 12 years.
So the reason I said 12 years is because,
He's
reading
out.
cases and, you know that they're going to get out and
Yeah.
it's just shocking. But I would have I would have hoped it would be something like 30 years plus, but I thought
Yeah.
12 was a really low number. Oh
Yeah.
my God.
So 12 years in 1997. So you know what's coming. He's free. But let's look at his time in jail first. He remained in
Oh,
that jail, Fleury-Mérogis jail, for 4 years and 2 months, awaiting trial, and then waiting for them to find him space in another prison. February 1999, he's moved to Maison Centrale Poissy, 15 miles outside of Paris. Most serious offenders go there, and Claux, aka the liar, but this bit might also be true, says he was in there with several serial killers. It's
yeah,
possible.
but he might have been a serial killer. We don't
Yeah,
know though.
yeah. He studied computer programming while in prison, and he started painting, and in his words, soon learned that he had a natural talent. He studied, after serving just 7 years and 4 months
Oh,
of a 12-year sentence, Nicolas Claux was released from prison on March 22nd, 2002. 7 years.
that was over 3 years ago he's been out.
No, 2002. So he's been
Oh,
out for
2002. I'm
23
sorry.
years.
That
Yeah.
was like 20. Oh, oh,
He,
D.
yeah, it's really bad. He made a website using the knowledge he learned in prison and then started selling his own artwork, but also those of other famous killers. Like, I totally am on board with rehabilitation, learning skills in prison that are not criminals so that you can come out and have a legitimate life and be a contributing member to society. And great if he's learned that he likes to artwork and selling that, but also those of other famous killers is again where he fucking loses me.
No.
He got booked on talk shows and all sorts.
No way. Why?
And I know I sound like a hypocrite because I'm a fucking true crime podcast. I talk about these people, but there's a difference
Yeah, but it's
talking
not
about them.
voyeuristic though. It's
No, but
voyeuristic
it's
when you
giving them a
book him on.
platform when you know they're a fucking liar and when they're doing other shit. He says he won't practice cannibalism again. Oh, okay. Well, he's probably telling the truth. He's got a long history of it. For a while, he lived in Sweden and then in England. Ugh. And then moved back to Paris with his girlfriend in 2004. And I think,
Girlfriend.
yeah.
Like,
And
I
I
think anyone that would be with him needs to have their head checked.
can you imagine kissing a guy who's fucking eaten and drunk, fucking human?
Oh no, but kissing a guy that's killed someone
Yeah,
and watch them
for
die
fun.
for fun.
And how is she not scared for her own
I know, I
safety?
know.
And
People do silly things, don't they, when they meet people?
I mean, I presume she thinks he's like reformed and stuff.
Maybe.
But I just think it's such a red flag that he's then leaned so hard into this like world, but not
Hmm.
in a, you have a lot of people that have gone to prison, done horrendous things that work on like victim support or rehabilitating people or working against like helping people not get into gang culture, this, that, and the other. They're using their experience there
Yep.
for good. He's not doing this.
He's glorifying other killers.
He's using his background to get fame, to put himself in
Hmm.
contact with really, really bad people, but not to help them or to change them, to benefit from that.
Hmm.
And that is just so scary to me. I think he's in Dublin now, from what I could tell.
Oh no.
I know.
Sorry.
Sorry,
Creepy
sorry,
there.
Dublin. He
Sorry.
travels the world. I know, I was nauseated when I learned he lived in England. I was like, ew, he lived in
I
the same
know.
country as me at the same time. Ugh. He travels the world selling his artwork, and I think at this point I was going to listen to some of the podcasts, and I tried really hard and I did, but I couldn't listen to I downloaded a few with him and I couldn't listen to all of them, and I had to fast
No.
forward through a lot of it because I couldn't hear him talk.
What is he talking about? Like, what is he
He's
talking?
talking about when he killed a man and stuff like, oh,
So
I
he's just chatting about it.
Yeah, I couldn't
Mhm.
find it. He's also published books. He talks about them, but his books are about his experience killing and dealing with other killers. This is his artwork. It looks
I mean,
shit.
I'm sorry, but that looks. It's so funny when you said he realized that he'd a talent. I
Look, this is him
mean,
with art from I think that's meant to be John Wayne Gacy. I don't know if it's by him, but this is son of Sam, clearly.
yeah,
So,
and there's
this is Richard Ramirez. This looks like Jeffrey Dahmer. So he's painting pictures of like horrendous stuff and famous serial killers and stuff.
I hope he is in some kind of police watch list because this is not normal.
I mean, you would hope they're keeping tabs on him at the very least. So I listened to Unforbidden Truths podcast, which
Hmm.
had an interview with Nicolas Claux, and I don't know how these people do it. Do you know what I mean?
They interviewed him.
To interview someone who's done something horrendous must be hard enough. But if they're showing remorse and if they're wanting to improve and avoid things like that happening in the future, I think that obviously will make it bearable. And if it has a good message overall,
Yeah.
but to interview someone like this who's not remorseful and is, yeah,
So,
um,
so he's not remorseful about the killing.
no, not really. No. It sounds like he's very annoyed that he got caught. So actually, I don't even think he sounds annoyed that he got caught because he wouldn't be as famous as he is now if he hadn't. So I also listened to Uneasy Terrain Explorers Club podcast, which interviewed Nicolas Claux. I think he goes by Nico now. but I'm not calling him that. Um, and like I said, I did not listen to the whole thing because I couldn't, and I still am like uncomfortable with what I heard. Um, so this is where I learned that he's actually the fucking curator of the International Exhibition of Serial Killers. So he made the exhibition I went to, and this is where I was like, ew. If I had known that, I would not have
Yeah,
gone.
you would not have gone,
I
Dee.
would
No
not have
way.
gone. And they would explain why all the merch had serial killers plastered all over it, whatever.
And can I ask where it was again in London? Where
Oh,
was
it
it?
was in such a cool place in the vaults um, underneath Waterloo Station. There's a street called Leek Street, which is where you
Yeah,
can legitimately
yeah,
graffiti and
yeah,
whatever. And you have the vaults, which is an exhibition space and a performance space and whatever. So cool. So it was there. And that also sold me on it a bit too, because they normally have really cool, fun stuff there.
and you know that he would have been there at some point.
Oh, I did not think that, but yeah. So he does portraits of criminals based on their mugshots. He's comfortable talking about his past because it's the past in his words, but I would argue not for the fucking families of the victims. He blames intrusive thoughts. He describes himself as Satan, as a Satanist, but not the fluffy American Anton LaVey Church of Satan, because we did an episode, me and my sister, on the Church of Satan,
Yeah.
and it's not about this. He's more like the dark European Black Masses devil worship type of Satan, right? He says the cannibalism started as a power trip. You feel like you're above the rest. You walk down the street and you see other people as food, and you are the top of the food chain, in his own words. He says it made him evolve into a more sophisticated person. These are his words now. Not, I felt like I was that. Then he said it became sexual,
Oh,
but claims he's not a necrophiliac. He used to bring women to the morgue to role play. He said that he was drafted into the army and then left within a year, which I don't really understand how you can be drafted and then leave.
well, was it
Um,
conscription? Like,
yeah, but
suppose?
if you're conscribed into the army, I don't know enough about the French army to know whether that was happening at the time. But if you are drafted into the army, you can't just leave. They're telling you have to join the army. So,
Sorry, I'm
there's
really confused by the women thing as well, Dee. You have to expand on that. That's just, I can't.
well, the only thing I can say is that he's a proven liar.
Hmm.
So who knows if he actually brought women to the morgue? Who knows how much is true or not? But I just couldn't understand just giving him that platform to speak from his own mouth when the things he was saying were still so awful, like I said,
Mm-hmm.
without remorse, without a message of improving himself or doing something, some good coming of it. And it also, like I said at the beginning, made me really question myself because like I said, especially because I'm already linked to this true crime world. I want to make sure in the future that I'm much more careful about things.
Yeah.
Like I don't like to read books, and I don't buy books of prisoners
Mm.
while they're in prison. You know what I mean? Like I much rather, if I want to read about someone, read something written by someone else or by one of their family members or whatever, because I don't like the idea of giving them any kind of money.
Mm.
So I'm really annoyed that I paid money to go to his fucking exhibition. I'm really fucking annoyed about that. And it also goes into the sort of ethics of like trading memorabilia and so forth,
Absolutely. Yeah.
But yeah, it
Oh
was,
God.
and like I said, the exhibition, it felt quite a bit like glorifying, not enough victim focus, a lot of stuff that I felt uncomfortable because they were made by personal donations. It's like why are you encouraging these individuals, these private individuals, to trade in like Jeffrey Dahmer's glasses,
I
you
mean, what I think
know?
is quite interesting is the fact that whoever put the exhibition on or allowed him to exhibit there. So obviously it's a super cool venue, and I agree. Like I used to have a flat just round the corner, and I loved it round there. But what kind of like protocol is that the word? Like
Did they do
what?
any due diligence?
Yeah, because you're basically allowing
Did they
someone to
know?
pay for a space who wants to put on an exhibition, serial killer exhibition. Like, what do you look at the person that's like, paying for
Yeah,
it? Did he pay
exactly.
for it? Does he have a company that he pays like that paid for it, or is there someone else doing it? I'm not going to
Because
look into
I
all the
couldn't,
detail, but
yeah,
still.
exactly. Did they know that he was linked to it? Did they care? Did they have a conversation about it? Did they decide because he wasn't doing anything illegal, he'd served his time for the crime or whatever, that they couldn't say no or they didn't want to say no? It's interesting. I won't name any names, but I was working in a space that also had a meeting room, exhibition space or whatever, and it was hired by private individuals and companies or whatever to use that space. And we found out that it was being used by a sort of, what is the term? We now call it an incel group, right? It was like, it sounded surface level, very positive, like a men's support group. So they can talk about their emotions or whatever, which I'm all for. You look deeper into it, and it's someone who says that rape doesn't exist because a woman really can't say no. It's not allowed to say no to a man and stuff like that. So I was really proud that that organization that was responsible for that,
Renting out.
space
Mm.
decided no.
Mm.
And it was actually like a charitable organization. So for them to say no to
Money coming in.
money, it's a big deal, right? But they were like, absolutely
Absolutely.
not fucking having these people.
No, no, no.
So yeah, so it's interesting. I wonder whether I should get in touch and be like, just curious whether you knew this, whether it was a conversation.
Do you know what? I think it would be interesting just to ask them and just say, look, we've just covered an episode on this, or like just to ask, or you don't even have to say that because I'd be interested to know. And actually, it might stop them in the future because he might do it again there.
Yeah,
Was
yeah,
it busy when you were there with
yeah,
Vigilante?
yeah. It was on for a few weeks, and when we
Wow.
went, it was busy. Yeah.
I wonder how much money he made from it. Like how
I mean,
much were the
I remember the
tickets?
tickets about £27 or
Oh
something.
my God, Dee, that is a lot
And
each.
that I want to ask if that's I'm questioning myself, but it was
Would you have
around.
paid? Would you have paid £27 though
Yeah, I would
to
have for
walk
this because it
round?
was it was it sounded awesome. I know the venue space,
Yeah.
so I know that it would be super cool. I In terms of the content or whatever, it's London prices, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, exactly.
I didn't really
Crazy.
question the price or whatever. It's basically what you would go see, what you pay to go see an exhibition is very specialized or
Mm,
whatever. And it was like a limited run and stuff. So
yeah.
that seemed like normal to me. Like how jaded we are with London prices. It was just a London price you pay
50
for a
quid,
thing.
totally fine.
I wouldn't have paid 50, but like that kind of price was pretty expected, let's say.
Yeah.
But it wasn't cheap. And
No.
yeah, it was just fucking bizarre. So yeah, so that guy just creeped me out, still creeps me out. I still hear his voice, I still hear his words, and I will put links to the podcast I listen to and everything, but I really don't recommend you listen to it. It was like, do you know, it was oh, maybe it was equivalent to when you hear, I don't like hearing like 999 calls or 911 calls
No, I can't do that.
anyways, but
Mm.
when you hear the ones that are actually by the perpetrator, you know what I mean?
Pretending. Yeah.
Yeah, those ones stick with me a lot because
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
like,
yeah.
fucking hell, I would have believed that, you know?
Mm. Yeah.
Um, yeah, and on top of that, he's just like a very gross man. Do
I
you
was
know what I
gonna
mean?
ask, like, what does he sound like? What's his accent? Is he a French
French.
accent?
Yeah.
French.
Mhm.
Is he quite arrogant or is he just like,
Okay, so I don't know if I can answer that objectively because when I listened to the podcast, I already had read all this stuff.
yeah, of course.
Um,
Is he matter of fact? Because I kind of think that
yeah,
without listening to it, I think that he would be matter of fact, normalizing everything. And the thing is, I think it's really good that you've covered this because you can't normalize. It's been normalized because he's allowed to put on an exhibition. He's a convicted killer and he's allowed to put on an exhibition by other convicted killers. So why is that normalized? Like, and he's
and
gone
he's
on
just
another podcast, and the podcast that put him on, like, whatever they wanted to do is completely up to them. And as you said, if you were putting someone like that in a podcast, you would hope that there would be some resolution, some kind of,
yeah,
he would feel, remorse for what he's done. But I mean, good on you for like, talking about it.
yeah.
And, it's not normal. It's not normal.
No, it
Shouldn't
is
be
not fucking
normalized.
normal. It's not normal. So yeah, I really struggled with that, and I did a lot of soul searching, and I'm embarrassed that I went to this thing, and um
Let's
but
speak to
it's,
the vaults to find out when his
yeah,
next exhibition is and make sure it doesn't
we'll
happen.
do. I want to ask them because I'm like, if they knew about all this.
Do you know what? I wonder, I suspect they probably didn't. But who knows? Let's give them the benefit of the doubt. And, but I would be surprised if they didn't then find out after it was on. And is it too late then to do something about it?
What can they do? But like, even if they didn't know any of this, do they have, probably not, some say on the content and space? Like if I had a venue space and someone
Mm.
brought that merch, I would
Mhm.
I would be on high alert because of the nature of that exhibition anyways, right?
Yeah.
And I'd be like, yes, you can hire my venue, but it has to make sure that it's not sensationalizing, it's information, it's, you know, um
Mm.
I'll tell you, I almost instantly felt uncomfortable because they recreated one of the crime scenes of Jack the Ripper. But
Mm.
and again, it's like, okay, is that informative or is that like just for shock value? And it felt more like for shock value because you literally walked into a room and it was the bedroom of one of the victims with the victim on the bed, like completely, like we all know what Jack the Ripper did. So it did feel a little bit more like shock value rather than
Mm. Do you
information.
know if he donated any money to charity from the exhibition? Just
Oh, I
curious.
don't know. I don't know. I don't even know how I'd find out about that without getting in
I
touch with
mean,
him.
yeah.
And
No,
I
no,
do
no.
not
Like, I just want like if it said when you got your ticket and we're giving 20%
know.
to victim support or
No,
you
there was
know,
none of that.
that would make it the exhibition still is not tolerable, but that would make it a little bit more tolerable. Because like, you know, with the shop D that I've got, like it's really difficult to find really good quality merchandise. And like you were talking about, you know, the merchandise and like it was a red flag for you all that kind of cheap merchandise is out there. The made in China crap stuff that's got a like a stenciled picture of a serial killer. It's just horrible. It's just really crass and really horrible. And it's really difficult to find really good quality stuff.
Mhm.
Um, but then also to on top of that have all the crap stuff and then not to then support any charity as well, I just think is just it's just massively profiteering from crime. It's just horrible. Just
Yeah.
absolutely horrible.
So yeah, so let us know your thoughts on that. Am I overreacting? Am I a fucking hypocrite because I have a true crime podcast, so I talk about crime? Am I right to be nosed out by this guy? I feel like the answer is yes, regardless to what the other question answers are. Do you need a palate cleanser?
Yes, please. Have we got some tats?
I do. This is the next installation of the Inquisition. Inquisition. If you go to our website, if you go to our socials, there's links in the bio, etc., etc. Submit a picture of your tattoo, and we will talk about it. Now, I've got one from the lovely Linda from Brewery Market.
Oh,
So
nice. We
some of
love
you know,
Linda.
some of you have come along to my events at the Brewery Market. There's more planned. We just haven't planned them yet. So maybe they're not planned. There's more in the pipeline that we will plan
Yay. And
once
I
we
want to
get our
go to the
shit
stuff.
together.
I want to go
Yes,
to one.
exactly. Well, you need to come and present with
Hang
me.
out, I know. Mm.
So Linda is a legend and she has got, I'm going to share it with you. Hang on. I'm going to share the photo and then we'll talk about it. She's so cool.
Oh my goodness, what is this?
I thought
Funky
you would
boy.
like it in particular
Oh, because it's
because,
David Bowie. It's
yes,
Ziggy
so
Stardust, is it?
yeah, well, it's inspired by the 70s, included David Bowie because she loves him as well. So this is the little angel on my arm, inspired by the 70s, tattooed by Keely Glitters. Um, I've asked her, so one of the questions on the forum, are we allowed to get matching tats if we love your submission? And the answers are hell yes, fuck no, or I've already booked the appointment for you. And she sticked that one. So so we love you, Linda. We love the Brewery Market, Church Street, Twickenham. Go and have a drink. She is so good at promoting sort of independent small brewers. And even
And
for me
Church
who
Street is lovely. Church
Church
Street's
is
amazing.
so lovely. Um, and I don't even like beer, and she always finds me a beer I like. So maybe I do like
Mm.
beer. I drink stout.
Oh, I stout. I love stout. Like a
Well, because
nice
she,
chocolate milky
yeah,
stout.
because she
Mm.
does like flavored ones. So I had a really nice tiramisu one once recently that tasted like a little espresso martini.
When you come to York, we have to go to like Brew York. They've got one near
Mm.
me in Clifton, and then they've got one in centre of town, and they brew their own stuff, and they've got amazing stouts and beers, and you'll love them.
I
And they've all got
think that
cool
we
names.
have at our events paired Brew York beers with some of our events because we pair
Ooh.
beers with crimes at the events at the brewery market.
They've all got cool names like Barbara Streisand and
Yeah,
stuff like
yeah,
that.
yeah. So, oh, well, I cannot wait for that. All right, well, submit your stuff to the Inquisition and come hang out with us next week. Next week, I'm going to be also presenting another case to you. And then
Because I'm
after
still a
that,
baby. I'm
you're
still a
a baby in the
baby.
podcast world. And then the following one, it will be you presenting a case to me. And then we will alternate.
I'm so excited.
You are going to be amazing.
I'm so
All right.
excited.
And obviously, you can catch up with Isla at Criminally Good Books, our happy place.
Happy
I'm
place.
annoyed is too far away from my house to go to every single day, but it's probably good for my wallet because I would buy
You
everything.
would get your staff discount, you
I
know.
know, and I would still be broke and have to sell organs in order to. I'd sell them to Nicolas Claux.
He's probably making a fortune from his exhibitions. He'd be able to buy them from you.
Yeah.
And can I
Ugh.
just say, I'm buying that press jumper. I'm buying it. As soon as we're finished, I'm going on to get it.
Wear the piece. Like I said,
Wear
they've
the
got so
piece,
many cool stuff.
exactly.
It's got a little watermelon.
I know when I saw that, I thought I'm gonna get it. It will go with my necklace and my earrings.
For those of you who've wondered about the watermelon motif, it's because Palestinians have had decades, over 70 years of illegal occupation. Again, not my opinion. That is international law's opinion. But we've had many times where displaying our flag has been deemed illegal by Israel and people have been imprisoned for it and so forth. And when October 7th happened and was the start of this escalation of violence, many people use the watermelon motif because it was similar colors to the Palestinian flag. So now it's our symbol of peace and love and support for our people.
Yep. And Ivy
And
went to school the other day
oh
with
my
a
God,
watermelon painted on her face with her keffiyeh and her little Bethlehem t-shirt, and she looked the cutest little thing.
oh my
And
God,
all
she
of
was
her
so cute.
pictures from Bethlehem when she was a baby.
She was the cutest little honorary Palestinian I ever did see. I was so proud. All right,
So
well, we
proud.
will see you all next week. Love.
I can't wait.
Love you, sexy listeners. Do
Love
you love our
you.
sexy?
Bye.
Wait, do you love our sexy listeners?
No, I don't, because I've not met them. I want to see them. I'll love
All
them
right,
more
well,
when I
come
see
visit
them.
Isla in
And
the
then,
shop so that she
yeah,
can fall in love with
come
you.
visit me in the shop. I want to see how sexy you are. And if you're a listener, please let me know, and there might be a little something in it for you.
All right, love you.
Bye.
Bye.